Today's lesson is on the Pythagorean Theorem. First, we'll look at sides of a right triangle. The sides of a right triangle have special names. The legs are the two sides that form the right angle. The hypotenuse is the side opposite the right angle. The Pythagorean Theorem tells us that in any right triangle, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. Or we can say a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b represent the lengths of the legs and c represents the length of the hypotenuse. Now we'll look at finding the length of a hypotenuse. So we're going to find the length of the hypotenuse of the triangle. So for number 1, we have that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. What we do not know is c. We do not have the length of the hypotenuse. For the legs, we have 8 feet and 15 feet. It doesn't matter if a represents 8 feet or if it represents 15 feet, as long as we use both 8 and 15 for a and b. So let's just say that a represents 8, so we have 8 squared. And then we'd say that for b squared we have 15 squared, and that would then be equal to c squared. 8 squared is 64, plus 15 squared, which is 225, and that equals c squared. 64 plus 225 is 289, and that would be equal to c squared. We don't want to know c squared, we want to know just c. So to find just c, we need to take the square root of both sides. The square root of 289 would be 17, because 17 times 17 equals 289. And the square root of c squared is just c. So we have that 17 equals c, or we can also say that c equals 17 feet. Now for number 2, we'll start again with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Once again, we do not know c, so we do have our lengths for a and b. Those two lengths are 3/10 inches and 2/5 inches. So we can go ahead and just choose one of those two for a. So we can go ahead and say 2/5, and we'll have 2/5 squared, plus b would be 3/10 then, so 3/10 squared, and that would be equal to c squared. 2/5 squared would be 2/5 times 2/5, and that would be 4/25. Plus 3/10 squared would be 3/10 times 3/10, which is 9/100. And that's equal to c squared. We need to get common denominators so that we can go ahead and add these together. So we'll have our common denominator of 100, which means we need to multiply 4/25 by 4. So we're going to have 16/100 plus 9/100 equals c squared. 16/100 plus 9/100 equals 25/100, and that equals c squared. 25/100 simplifies to 1/4. So we can say this is 1/4, which is equal to c squared. Again, we just want c, so we need to take the square root of both sides. So we'll take the square root of 1/4, and we'll also take the square root of c squared. For the square root of 1/4, we would get 1/2, because 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/4. So we get 1/2 equals the square root of c squared, which is just c. So 1/2 equals c. Or again, we can say that c equals 1/2 inches. Now we're going to find the length of a leg. So we're going to find the missing length of the triangle. So for number 3, we'll go ahead and start out with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And on this one we do not know b, but we do have 16 yards and 34 yards that we do know. 16 would be a because that represents one of our legs, and 34 would be c because that is a hypotenuse. So we'll have that 16 squared plus b squared equals 34 squared. 16 squared equals 256. And then plus b squared equals 34 squared. And 34 times 34 is 1,156. Now we need to solve for b squared. So we can subtract 256 from each side. And we'll get that b squared equals 900. We do not want b squared, we just want b. So we need to take the square root of both sides so that we can just get b. So the square root of b squared is just b. And the square root of 900 would be 30 because 30 times 30 equals 900. So we get that b equals 30, and then we need to label this with yards. So b equals 30 yards. And now for number 4, we're going to start out with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And in this problem we do not know a, but we do know that we have 9 6/10 meters and 10 4/10 meters. 9 6/10 would represent b because it is one of our legs, and 10 4/10 would represent c because it's the hypotenuse. So we have a squared plus 9 6/10 squared equals 10 4/10 squared. Now we have a squared plus 9 6/10 squared is 92 16/100. And that equals 10 4/10 squared, which is 108 16/100. Now we need to subtract 92 16/100 from each side. And we'll get that a squared equals 16. We do not want a squared, we just want a. So we need to take the square root of both sides. Square root of a squared is just a. The square root of 16 is 4 because 4 times 4 equals 16. And then we need to label this with meters. So a equals 4 meters.